Allegiance. Commissioner Hanson.
That you'll give us throughout the year and as we work on this budget. And Father, we pray that you will guide each one of us in our decisions, give us wisdom, that we might glorify you in all that we do. And we ask it in thy name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Arndt. Commissioner Peak.
Here.
Commissioner Haskell.
Here.
Commissioner Pearl Wright.
Here.
Commissioner Whitaker.
Here.
Commissioner Moudry.
Here.
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner Drosha. Commissioner Toomey.
Here.
Commissioner Hanson.
Here.
Commissioner Christensen.
Here.
Commissioner Holmes.
Here.
Commissioner Barber.
Here.
Commissioner Chairman Mott.
Here. All right, agenda additions or changes?
One addition, the closed session minutes approval.
Okay.
Move the agenda as amended.
Agenda's been moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Now we have the approval of the minutes, June 18th and June 5th, and special meeting, and then the closed session. A motion to move those? Moved by Commissioner Barber, supported by Commissioner Haskell. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. And, yeah, we get to collect the closed session minutes, please. Thank you. Next up, we have communications. You'll see in your packet, we have Washtenaw opposing the MDHHS plan for competitive procurement for health plans. And we also have one from Ontonagon County opposing proposed cuts to the Medicare by the federal government. Next up, we've got limited public comment. If anyone would like to approach the board, please approach the podium and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Tu. I'm a proud graduate of the Eaton County District Hybrid Court Program. I'm here today to share my story, not because it's easy, but because it is necessary. Without this program, I don't know if I'd be alive, let alone sober, stable, and contributing to this community. Like many people in recovery, life events stacked up, causing unprocessed trauma that led to self-doubt, a lack of self-worth, and emotional instability. I carried this into adulthood. When I got to college, I turned to drugs and alcohol to numb my emotional weight I never learned to process. In 2015, I received my first DUI. The consequences were minimal. No treatment, no accountability. I continued to use. By 2017, my addiction had cost me my relationship, and I returned home to Lansing. I was able to give up drugs with no form of treatment, but alcohol took deeper root. At my lowest, I was consuming at least a fifth of whiskey a day, and I frequently fantasized about ending my life. In 2019, I received 2 DUIs within just over a month. The second resulted in a serious car accident that broke my back, requiring emergency surgery. I still wonder today if that was my way of trying to end it all. During these legal troubles, I was detained by the Eaton County Sheriffs and served multiple days in jail. Once released, I made the choice to seek residential treatment. Despite my desperate need for help, I was turned away because I had been sober for too long to meet admission criteria. So I kept drinking. On December 13th, 2019, I was arrested for a bond violation. That was the last day that I drank. I've been sober since December 14th, 2019. What changed everything for me was the Eaton County Sobriety Courts. In early 2020, I was sentenced into the program. It gave me structure, accountability, therapy, connection, and most importantly, a chance that traditional treatment denied me. I graduated from the program successfully on February 2nd, 2022. Sobriety Court didn't just help me stay sober, it helped me become the person I was always meant to be. It gave me the tools to heal from trauma, the opportunity to repair relationships, and the confidence to pursue a life of purpose. My purpose has become my profession. I hold multiple credentials in addiction recovery today. a certified peer recovery coach, certified peer recovery mentor. I have a development plan as a certified prevention specialist, and I'm currently seeking out my credentialing as a limited certified alcohol and drug counselor. I serve on the board of directors for the Michigan Certification Board of Addiction Professionals and the Michigan Association of Alcohol and Drug Abuse Counselors, where I help shape standards and best practices at a state level. Locally, I serve as a program coordinator at the Mid-Michigan Recovery Services, Lansing's longest-lasting substance use disorder treatment agency. I'm also proud to be a treatment team member for the 55th District Court, and I have developed and implemented recovery coach programming for Eaton County Treatment Courts. I'm deeply invested in Eaton County's recovery ecosystem. I serve on the Eaton County Substance Abuse Advisory Group, the Prevention Committee, the Substance Abuse Task Force, and the Eaton County Overdose Fatality Review Team. Collaborating across sectors to reduce harm, increase access to care, and improve outcomes for individuals and families affected by substance use. What I see every day confirms that what data shows. Sobriety courts work. They reduce recidivism, restore families, and help individuals build sustainable lives in recovery. These are not just diversion programs, they are opportunities for transformation. I have witnessed countless participants rebuild their lives through the structure, accountability, and compassion offered by the treatment court teams. My most meaningful credential is not listed on any resume, nor will you find it on any professional bio, yet they are the titles I have had to work the hardest for. Husband, son, grandson, and a present, sober father to 2 children who have ever only known this version of me. Recovery is possible. Programs like the Eaton County Sobriety Courts make it accessible. It is not just a justice system intervention, it is a lifeline, not just for the individuals who participate, but the generations that follow them. The truth is, we do not recover in isolation, we recover in community. And treatment courts are one of the most effective community responses we have. Cutting funding to the Eaton County treatment courts would not only increase costs elsewhere, such as jails, hospitals, and emergency services, more than that, it would rob people of hope, families of reunification, communities of redemption stories, and it will cost people their lives. Thank you.
What was your name again?
Kevin, too.
Thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And thank you for serving others. It takes a lot of courage to get up there and do what you did, so, and we appreciate that. Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll move on. Next up, we have committee reports and resolutions. First up, we have Public Works and Human Services with Commissioner Barber.
Good evening. The first thing on the docket is a resolution to discontinue the solid waste alternative grants. I move that.
Moved by Commissioner Barber, supported by Commissioner Hanson. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
All right, and then the second one is the resolution to approve the Fitzgerald Park lease. I go ahead and move that.
Moved by Commissioner Barber, supported by Commissioner Pearl Wright. Any questions or comments regarding that lease? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next up, we have Public Safety Committee with Commissioner Holmes.
We had our meeting on July 10th. We heard reports, monthly reports from the department heads, and there are no action items. That conclude my report.
Quick and sweet. All right, thank you, Commissioner. And that brings us to Ways and Means Committee with Commissioner DeRosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ways and Means met last Friday. We have many items on our agenda, first of which for this evening is the Delta Township Police Service Agreement. And I'm not going to address that person. I'll let the Controller's Office take care of that.
So today, we had the final meeting with Delta Township Administration, and Chairman Mott and Supervisor Brewer were there, and we worked through the contract, and the sheriff, of course, worked through the contract kind of line by line. It has gone to legal counsel review by our legal counsel, their legal counsel, and we submitted it to our insurer so that we're covered with respect to insurance. Now, the question that I have for you tonight is we can go through line by line, and what we did was put one at your place. So, or we can talk about some of the significant changes that we worked out, given the fact that Delta Township will be paying the full cost plus the admin fee, and kind of walk through what that means. And Ben is just really anxious to do that. So I think that's good if everyone agrees that we walk through it closely.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, I'll let you have it, Ben.
All right. So I would say from a language standpoint, probably 65, 70% of this is same language as before. Really, this has been updated to account for the financial framework that you all approved on June 5th, and to reconcile that back to the agreement that you have before you. So the terms of the opener, it's a 10-year agreement commencing on October 1st, 2025, would run through September of 2035. It has an automatic renewal unless a party gives 3 years' notice, so it's a 3 years out, like we discussed when we had the meeting on June 5th. Then there are two scenarios in which, while the contract's in effect, that the contract can be opened up for renegotiation. One is if the county receives additional revenue for public safety, such as a millage, or reestablishes a county road patrol of Delta Township, that might change the amount of deputies that are needed in Delta, so we would open the contract back up to review it at that time if that were to occur. County were to enter into a police services agreement with another community that has more favorable terms similarly. So if we were to do a contract with another community for an admin fee of 10% instead of 15, that'd be grounds for opening up the contract, which is pretty reasonable. You know, we had the discussions about the contract is at cost and it requires additional staff, which has jumped the cost for the services to Delta Township. So in recognition of that, if we find a way to provide additional support, that we would come back and revisit this agreement. We've talked about this trying to be the standard that we use going forward as we potentially negotiate other contracts with schools or other communities, that this would be the framework we'd want to work with. So if there's an event that occurs, they have 60 days to notify us that they'd like to open the contract so that we can evaluate it. And then it's a 3-year out, which we talked about. And at any time, we can, by mutual consent, open the contract to negotiate, which is pretty standard if both parties would like to. Any questions on that section before move on?
I just want to state, so if at any point we do, come into being able to have out-county road patrol, we also are going to have to go back and renegotiate, and that's going to be part of the cost to the county. So it's not just the aspect of supplying the cost of road patrol.
The services to be provided are in line with what was there before. So it's for Delta Township and then the 425 area, which is an agreement with Lansing. It's more of a tax and development agreement. The other thing that we added is we have kind of 2 dates of mechanisms. So we'll have a preliminary budget where we give personnel estimates and capital estimates on June 1st. And then as we go through our budget process, we'll finalize the next year's rate by October, once we adopt our budget. So on June 1st, a list of capital assets and anything over 5,000 will go to Delta. They'll have a chance to review it. If they have items that they're concerned with, they have to vote on it at their board, but nothing would be unreasonably withheld. So it leaves room for conversation on capital purchases over 5,000, which historically, it's new language, but in concept, that's been the practice we've had with Delta over the years, is trying to plan capital purchases for the Sheriff's Department. 2.2 just outlines the personnel structure, which is at the back, you'll see a number of appendices that help kind of visually lay things out, but it's the number of officers, so 38 deputies, 1 captain, or 38 sheriff deputies, which include a captain, a lieutenant, 5 sergeants, and then 2 full-time clerks for a total of 40 FTEs. To note, that's 5 additional sworn officers above what Delta had previously. Previously, Delta had a lieutenant as its highest ranking officer, so they are taking on a captain in recognition of the fact that the out-county does not have the command staff to provide that kind of service. Looks like you might have a question.
I just was curious, do we even, and maybe Sheriff would have to answer this, but do we even have 38 still on staff currently?
We do. I can pull up the numbers as of today, but last time I did the calculation, which was about a week ago, we had enough to staff Delta, and then enough for Command Central here at the county, like courthouse security, training officer. So we do, but we're getting close, so, and there are potentially some additional deputies. So the way this works, because it's a reconciling of expenses, if we're unable to provide all 40 at the end of the year, Delta would get a credit for the 2 officers they were down. Obviously, overtime would be added in if they had to have overtime to provide shift coverage, but that'd be part of the reconciliation process at the end of the year.
Okay, thank you.
And so we'd have posted the positions to start recruiting so that we could get that pipeline going back through the academy and to field training, so that we can hopefully continue the momentum of being able to keep our staffing levels adequate for the demands.
Yes, Commissioner Muder.
Ben, I've been asked, because of the structure here, does this mean that Delta has their own police department?
No.
No, okay.
It's a good question, and there's a few sections that we added that are directly out of the Oakland County contract. So Oakland County has a number of agreements with quite a few of the communities that they have. And for bargaining for purposes and everything, it's a very important distinction. These are Eaton County employees. They're covered by our liability, they're through our payroll, there are pension obligation, retirement, all of that. This is a contract for police services, so they are still Eaton County employees.
So they're still on a tether.
Yeah, oh yeah, there are guys and gals, yep.
Thank you.
To go with that, there were a couple provisions that were added in. So command staff under this contract are not to be used to provide command support for other contracts or other communities. With exception, Delta wanted the ability, if it helps in getting a school resource officer with Waverly, they would be okay with command staff providing direction in that type of an agreement. And personnel assigned to Delta Township would not be used to backfill deputies contracted for other municipalities or entities. Any questions on those before we move on? Okay. Next is the contract price. This is probably one of the more significant changes, but we went through on June 5th, so this is formalizing what you all had approved at that time. So we will have an annual method for reconciling the computation of actual expenses versus budgeted. So, and if it increases or decreases for the following reasons, this is how we would reconcile it. So every year, February 15th, following the closing of the county's fiscal year, we would do that computation using the process laid out in Appendix G. Appendix G is like a timeline where it shows our fiscal year and Delta's fiscal year and how those interconnect, so you can kind of see how the different dates all coincide with our budget cycles. So in the event of the retrospective review, if they're less than the costs already paid by the township for service, then a credit would be given to Delta in subsequent years. So because we're doing it in February, that credit might be over 6 to 9 months, depending when we finalize that figure in that year. In the event that the expenses are more than the cost paid by the township would remit payment to us for the difference based on the review of expenses. If those expenses exceed 5% of the budgeted amount, the amount over 5% would be a direct contribution to MERS. So part of this is managing expenses within the Sheriff's Department within the budgeted criteria. But if we went over 8%, that 3% above 5 would be going to MERS to pay down our long-term liability, and then the 5 would be reimbursement for that overage.
Any questions on that part? Okay.
The next is the annual support service fee, or admin fee as we typically call it, defined in Appendix A. It's determined by the final cost that happens on October 1st of each year. We've agreed that 33% or 5% of that support service fee will be going to help pay down the defined pension benefit for the sheriff department groups. We estimate that to be around $280,000 a year. And if personnel expenses go up, that portion may go up over the life of the contract. But this is part of the long-term plan for paying down our liability, which not only bring down our operating costs for us, but for any community like Delta that does a contract with us. Because as the required contributions on employees go down, so does the cost to do business with the county.
Concerning MERS, does that MERS contract reach its completion prior to this contract terminating at this point? Yeah, our obligation to it, yes.
No, 2041, I think, is where it's at. And then we have another item that we're going to do, but if we add the extension, it would put 5 years to that.
Okay, all right,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah,
Thank you for clarifying that.
definitely. Okay. The next would be, should an unforeseen event occur that causes expenses to be 10% more than what was expected in the fiscal year, when we reconcile that back, the support service fee would adjust to include that. Also, if they were less by 10%, we would modify the support service fee in acknowledgement of that. If it's less than 10%, the support service fee stays at what it was. Since we've committed 5% of that to go to MERS, it's for budgeting purposes. We really don't want that to change unless there's a drastic swing in the cost of the contract. Each year, Delta will have the ability to determine the number of personnel, so that's up to the discretion of the township. So if they need to change because they're unable to afford 40 positions one year because costs go up to a certain degree, whether it's health insurance or retirement, they would have the ability to provide notice to us within 90 days of receiving it or no later than August 1st, so that you all could make budgetary adjustments if they increase or decrease their FTE count. Any questions on that section? So next is additional one-time payment to Command Divine Benefits Plan. So before this fiscal year, and if this contract's agreed, we can move forward with the reamortization, which we'll talk about in a bit. But doing a injection of $3 million, $1 million from the county, $2 million from Delta Township into the command group would allow us to add 5 years to our amortization. It's not a perfect analogy, but it'd be similar to adding 5 years to your mortgage and recalculating your payment. So you're reducing the current year expenses with the ability to save money because you're paying it over a longer duration of time. And this $3 million injection of funding up front allows us to have more flexibility with the duration of our pension obligations. The next piece just outlines how that's directed, and there's an appendix in the back that breaks it down. But essentially for Delta, we will be giving them that credit back over the 10-year term. So they're paying it up front, so it'd be $200,000. And then we're giving them credit at the mid-level of earning potential that's outlined in our MERS valuation. So we'll give them credit for the earnings on that, and then the $200,000 a year up to the full $2 million over the term of the contract. If for some reason either party were to cancel the agreement, the principal would be determined on who cancels it. So if we were the ones that decided to cancel the contract early and there's 3 years left, we would owe Delta 3 years of that principal payment, $600,000 in that example. If Delta Township for some reason wanted to get out of the contract before the 10-year period and they were the ones that did the separation, we would not be obligated to pay back the principal. I think it's in everybody's interest to, continue on a path that helps tackle the MERS unfunded liability, but we wanted to make sure that we tidied that up just in case, because you never know, right? Yep. Okay. Any other questions on that section? Okay. Insurance and indemnity. This is very similar to what we had before. We added some additional language by request of our insurance provider, but it just names Delta as somebody on our insurance policy, since they are providing police services in the township, and the sheriff's department will be enforcing township, charter and law. It's important to have this because we're covering the liability of our operations. Yeah, any questions on this section? Okay. Next is the substation. This is similar to what we've had before. There's some additional language that was added since it's a brand-new building that just kind of codifies the past practice that we've had with the township. But Delta is responsible for maintaining the space, paid the cost due for water, sewage, gas, electrical, and then services that integrate with township infrastructure. So if they come up with a new alert system that has to get integrated, that's part of their infrastructure. And then the county at township's expense, in accordance with Appendix A and C, will be responsible for providing and paying telephone, fiber optic, other costs related to equipment, computers, communication facilities. Again, we forecast our expenses in June, finalize them in October, and then in February the next year, we reconcile back to actual expenses. But for the time it takes to run the agreement, we would be the ones spending that through our budget. Next is, in lieu of a lease, we're doing kind of a durable license, you could say. So use of the substation is deemed it's a township asset that's non-exclusive and will be for the sheriff's department use. There is a community meeting room there, so they will be able to have groups that might be able to use that at some point when they get everything set up. But for due considerations for maintaining security and integrity of police operations, it will be used for the sheriff's department operations. So the duration of the license will end with this contract, which makes sense. If we're, for some reason, not providing services, we wouldn't need access to the building anymore, and vice versa. And subject that we would return it in good condition, subject to normal wear and tear associated with providing police protection services. So we had good discussions about this, if there's a water leak or normal building pieces, that's Delta's. Even if there's a tussle because somebody getting arrested resists and ends up with a hole in the wall, that's normal, police work, right? But there might be instances where if an employee does something egregious, that might be something that we would cover through ourselves. Questions on this section? Okay. Examination of records, this is unchanged. It just leads the ability to be able to get regular updates and access to information that the township may need to keep their citizens apprised of operations. Non-waiver of immunity rights and defenses, this remains unchanged. This just means that even though we're doing an intergovernmental agreement, neither community waives our rights for immunity. 9, 10, and 11, these are the sections that are from the Oakland County agreements. They go through just very much outlining they are Eaton County employees, they are paid by the county, and the deputies will not be paid by the township. So very much just clarifying the employment relationship. County has a co-employment relationship with the sheriff. Sheriff and the county are entering into a contract to provide services to the township, but they are our employees. So the next one that's of note, so this is a new one. Township request for special equipment outside the established annual budget process. We were able to do this before, but we're codifying it now since we have very clear budget development and then reconciliation processes. But if Delta were to approach us and the sheriff because they want to add, say, additional technology to help monitor traffic or violations like that, they can do so in the middle of the term. Such a procurement would still be subject to the 15% support service fee and would be reconciled at the end of the year. If for some reason either the township or us didn't want to do it, we could just fold it into the next budget process. This is just a mechanism that allows it to happen mid-year if it wasn't on people's radars. Questions on that section? All right, number 14, we added an emergency and unbudgeted purchase authority, an acknowledgement of demands associated with supporting a 24-hour operation. The county and the township agree to have the ability to expend up to $25,000 to address an emergency or an unbudgeted capital expense, and that's in a contract year. Those requests have to go from the sheriff's office to the county and township, and for speed, those can be approved by the administration of both groups up to that limit in a year period, and that procurement would still be subject to the 15% service fee at the end of the year. And we added that all procurements under this contract will be subject to the Eaton County procurement purchasing policy, which we're in the process of trying to rewrite. But so if we ever update it, we don't have to come back and update this language because the authority will rest with whatever our policy is at the time. Any questions on those? Reimbursed overtime. So the county and township agree that the sheriff is authorized to enter into temporary overtime agreements with third parties doing events, commerce activities, or providing services within the Delta Township boundaries. Example would be up at the mall. Sometimes they do events and they can hire sheriff's deputies, and it's typically on overtime. Any such time we would track, and then that would be given back as a credit at the reconciliation process. So if those deputies are supporting economic activity in the township, then that would be credited back to Delta because they're already paying for those deputies, minus the actual expenses, right? So it'd be still subject to the 15% support service fee. Yeah, any questions on that section? Yeah.
Commissioner Haskell.
So when you say third party, we're not talking about employees that would not be county employees, right?
Yeah, in this instance, the third party would be like a business or entity hosting an event in Delta Township that wanted to have 2 or 3 deputies. And we did have some discussions on that, and I think Sheriff had talked about he'll try to do like a formalization, you know, if you've got 100 or 400, you know, you need a minimum level of deputies depending on the size of your event, kind of a structure.
Okay. So this is saying that those third parties would help pay for the, okay,
Exactly.
understood.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
But-
So if we expend, say, $3,000 in overtime expenses associated with, they would get billed $3,000 plus 15%. And then Delta would get the $3,000 credited back at the end of the year. So it's not coming out of the township's pocket, but the sheriff's department is able to offer overtime to employees, and it doesn't affect the finances of the.
No, that's fine. The first time I was like speed reading this, I was, I read it as we'd be hiring third-party policing services.
Oh,
And it's like,
I got you. I don't think the sheriff would like that.
no, I wouldn't either. Thank you.
Yeah. Next is mutual aid. This section is unchanged. We did have some good discussions on that today as well, but this would still give the sheriff the ability to respond to what is described. So mutual aid being when a sheriff's deputy is temporarily called to the aid of another community due to an emergency or exceptional circumstance, or because a sheriff's deputy possesses a special skill or qualification temporarily needed in another community. Any questions on that section? So for notices, is it in there? Oops. I was supposed to remove carbon copy from this next section, so. Yeah. If anybody's wondering, that's what CC on your email means. It's a holdover from when we used to have carbon copies on written communication, so.
Yeah, we thought it'd be, made a comment today that we're trying to save carbon, so.
So that word may not survive the final copy that gets signed in acknowledgement of that. But this just means correspondence and notices such as changing numbers of deputies or anything like pertaining to notice in this contract would have to go through this procedure to be considered in alignment with the contract. Yeah.
I see it says electronic mail. Does that preclude any paper trail if electronics went out for some reason, or how do we handle that?
Yeah, so the nice thing with what we have, and I wouldn't want to give too many secrets of what we do, but part of our tech footprint is a consistent backup that Eric could probably share a lot more about.
I think his question would be, if we had none, how would we get it?
Yeah, that's more the thing.
Oh, I got you.
So we would still use mail. I'd probably drive it over.
Okay,
As an alternative,
But yeah,
like if the internet went down
we're
and,
saying it, that they're wanting it this way, we want it this way because it's the quickest form.
oh yeah, oh yeah,
yeah.
thank you.
Yep. Okay, governing law, we made no changes to this section. It just means that we're entering into this under all respects interpreted, enforced, and governed under state of Michigan laws. Headings and agreement language, this is new, but this is pretty standard in a lot of contracts. It just means that the headings themselves don't determine the legal interpretation. It's the paragraph itself. And we used headings instead of captions because there are some notes on the appendices that are important for giving context. So, but it's pretty standard legal language. Any questions? Okay. And then waiver, so nobody waives a term of this agreement unless it's made in writing formally, right? So if we're gonna amend it, we would have to do like a letter of agreement or some kind of memorandum of understanding if we were gonna do something different than the terms that are here. And binding effect just means that this contract is binding on both parties as we enter into it. Amendments builds on that concept, but something of a change that's supplemented orally, like just because somebody said it, unless it's written down and codified, it doesn't take away from the effect of the contract. Cumulative remedies, this is if for some reason we had a contractual dispute, this does not have an arbitration clause, so we would settle such a difference in court as opposed to going through a lengthy arbitration process. And then severability just means if one section of the contract gets rewritten and is no longer legal under Michigan law, it doesn't negate the rest of the agreement. And then the entire agreement essentially just says everything is wrapped up in this. So a past practice from 5 years ago, if it's not in the contract, doesn't necessarily apply because this contract is a restart from today. And that is it. Then we have sections for signatures for both the township and the county, and the clerks from both groups will certify those if they get passed by the boards, and they will be included as a copy in the appendix. Appendix A goes through step by step. This follows similarly how we used to calculate the rate using the SEV credit. This is now updated, outlined the financial framework that we adopted on the 5th and outlined in the contract above. Appendix B is the personnel, the 40 positions, and their estimated costs that we're using as we move forward. Appendix C is a breakdown of technology expenses and estimated capital in the coming year as provided by our technology services. Appendix D is the retirement calculation, and this shows how that $2 million credit is calculated and what the prepayment or the payment credit that Delta will receive each year based on the earnings at the set rate. And then there's room here for our declaration sheet, which we'll add, just showing Delta is named on our insurance, covering operations there, and then the resolutions. And then Appendix G is just to show how those, all those dates interact with our budget process.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. I want to just, this seems like it didn't take much work, but I'm here to tell you, this was hours and hours of meetings and sitting down. Big shout out to Controller Selby and Deputy Controller Ben Dawson for really doing the most of the work on this, and thank you, Sheriff Reich, for everything you've done to help make this possible. So this is, I don't know how many meetings we had, but we spent hours going back and forth, and we had some very good discussions, and I think we've got a pretty good contract here for both of us. So, and I also want to give a shout out and a thank you to Manager Brian Reed and Courtney, she's a Finance Director, and Supervisor Fonda Brewer. So we got to know each other really well. It's a lot of hours together, but I want to thank them for their work in this too. So is there any questions about this contract? Is there anything you want to say, Connie?
I would echo everything that you just said. It's a huge undertaking. Obviously, we went into all of this not knowing what would happen, and when we started talking and trying to come up with a financial framework, which I think is that's the most important piece, because we're trying to do maintain financial stability. And I'll say it, I've said it throughout this whole process, Delta Township is picking up the full cost. It is a large undertaking for their township, but well worth it. And I would say that the sheriff has provided the best service they could ever have. So it was, again, worth it for them. But yeah, Supervisor Brewer and Brian Reed and Courtney Nichols were beyond perfect to work with. I would have no complaints whatsoever on our communication, and I think that says an awful lot about the leadership that the township has and the county.
Are there any other comments or questions? Yeah, Commissioner Haskell.
Yeah, I thank you, everyone involved from, staff here, staff at Delta, and to the commissioners at the dais here as well. As we move forward in the years to come, if there are opportunities for us to kind of use what we've been able to preserve with this contract and grow road patrol out again, you'll find, I think, some help here with the Delta commissioners as well.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yeah, I think it was a lot of work, and it occurs to me how much the whole county came together. And I've heard a controller talk about Eaton County totally, and county clerk also mentioned that. And I hope this event is not lost on the ones who represent Delta Township when they remember back in February when they took their partisan view on one issue that shouldn't have been. So that's all.
Yeah, I just want to echo, hopefully this day, or this contract, if it passes, will be looked upon and said thankful, and future boards and residents be thankful that maybe we'll be able to have, road patrol again, a full service, and this contract allows that to happen. So, yeah. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Brian, Commissioner DeRosa.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I would move this agreement. And then along with that, I had two questions from my constituents. One is, then, does this mean, I know the answer, but for the public, does this mean then that Delta Township is fully funding our sheriff's department?
They're fully funding the employees of the sheriff that will be working out of Delta Township.
Okay, so basically
And-
the road patrol.
And the supervision at the sheriff's, what we've called out county, the supervision, the property and evidence officer, and obviously oversight of the sheriff and any command staff remaining through that 15% admin fee. So yes, the county is not paying anything out of pocket. That was the whole intent for us to do this. And then I think the other important piece to it is the reconciliation. It's something that Manager Reed and I have talked about for years. It goes back before him, where we talked about reconciling at some point. But at that time, we were under this formula that we had, and so they were going to pay us this amount of money, and we didn't reconcile. In this case, if they're down 5 officers, they're down 5 officers, right? So being able to reconcile that so they're not hit with that cost at the end of the year, you know, that's just good business, I think, for us to do. But yes, no cost to the county.
Okay, well, that's a longer answer than I gave them, but.
Well, you know me.
And then the second question, the second part of that question is what happens if Delta can no longer afford this portion?
So, well, one, they have a 3-year out with the county, so they're obligated to give us 3 years' notice. So they're obligated to pay for this contract. The only thing they can do is reduce the staffing. Now, if Delta Township came back and said, we have to reduce staff to 2 people, then that could happen. But obviously, if you're watching the news, watching their meetings, they are doing everything they can to ensure that they have the funding. And again, their voters supported the ballot proposals, so they're working it, and they have a lot to go through yet to make sure they do have the funding.
Thank you.
It's been moved by Commissioner Derosha and supported by Commissioner Haskell. Are there any more questions or comments that any commissioner would like to make? Commissioner Christensen.
So I know this is about the Delta contract, but we had a couple other charter townships that also are going to need services. Are we any further along with negotiations with them or talks or any of that?
No, as we've stated, we're waiting for this framework, and then we can approach them. At Delta Township has a meeting on Monday that they would approve the contract, so from that point, we can work with those other communities. They're obviously a lot different given the size, right? So we'll be working with them, but we can't change the contract. Like I think Ben had mentioned before, it's not like we can go to a 5% support service fee. We need to maintain the same integrity of all contracts.
Thank you.
Any others? All right, with that, we'll go to a vote. I'm going to call for a roll call vote, please, Madam Chair, or Madam Clerk. What? Sheriff, did you want to make any comments? Okay. Sorry, I sprung that on you.
Can I say one thing? Well,
Yeah.
this is, you know, I'm helping by time, you know. I was just going to say that this also represents probably one of the biggest steps I've seen in the time I've been here, but also looking back at just really taking the MERS unfunded liability, not just seriously, but in action. So I say, I think it's a very good step forward for us as a community to say we understand that a fiscal path forward for stability has to include going after that obligation as often and as much as we can so that we're able to bring down the costs of providing services to the residents of the county. So I think that is one of the pieces that made this possible, and Delta has been fantastic partners in that. So I think it represents that commitment, not just from us, but also from the township to see brighter days here at the county, so.
Okay. Commissioner Arndt.
Aye.
Commissioner Peak.
Yes.
Commissioner Haskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Pearl Wright.
Yes.
Commissioner Whitaker.
Yes.
Commissioner Mudry.
Yes.
Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Drosha.
Yes.
Commissioner Toomey.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yes.
Commissioner Christensen.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes.
Commissioner Barber. Chairman Mott.
Yes. Passes unanimously. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
All right, continuing on.
Yep.
Item number 2, our MERS amortization extension consideration, which was somewhat addressed in that last discussion, but not in total.
So this was brought up at Ways and Means and moved for consideration here. Essentially, the motion was that if the township agreement did go through for the police services, which included the $2 million one time and then the commitment for the 33% of the admin fee over the duration of the contract, that we would pursue an extended amortization on the groups that are eligible. That investment of the one-time makes it possible to add the 5 years to the command group, There are only 3 pension groups that would not qualify as of now. Admin staff, which is like the non-union supervisory group, dispatch supervisor, and animal control. So those would be the 3 that didn't, but every other union group with our pension plans would. Adding the 5-year, the estimated savings by MERS was about $795,000. For perspective, which we talked about at Ways, that doesn't mean that the county has that money readily available. It means that if we do the one-time investment, do this, then the rates for required contributions would go down, and then you would see a reduction in the required, and that would lower the personnel costs, and that's where that savings would be realized. And then I think there were discussions at Ways about even with that savings, having the mindset of reinvesting some of that savings back into paying down the MERS contribution, because if you add time to a debt schedule, but you don't make any additional payments up front, you are adding to the cost of that over the life because you're paying it on an additional 5 years. But if you start making more money payments up front, that ends up reducing the cost of that expense. So that was just some of the discussion that happened at Ways regarding that. But it is an actionable motion. The request would be to move what was moved by Ways, which authorizes the county and the controller to pursue the steps necessary for doing the reamortization on eligible pension groups.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion, or I will move this to this adoption.
Moved by Commissioner DeRosa, supported by Commissioner Whitaker. Any questions? Or, oh, I'm sorry. Was he? Okay, supported by Commissioner Arndt. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 3 was our MERS delegates. We had some discussion on that as to who our delegates would be, and what did we determine, Ben?
All right, so Jeannie would be our main delegate, our voting member, representative of the board. I would be backup just in case for some reason she wasn't able to vote at that point of the time, but she's got very strong attendance at these things, so I think we're well represented. And then we have 2 employees, Kim out of the clerk's office. Gosh, who was the other one? Oh my gosh, our payroll specialist, Jen. Jen, I love you. Yep, it is on the screen. It's not on my screen, but yeah. So we would be moving those, and I believe Commissioner Haskell had expressed interest of going for the experience, and I think we're just clarifying dates. But he doesn't need to get moved because he would just be going as an attendee to learn more about pensions.
All right, and this is not an actual item, correct? Or it is?
It is.
Okay, then I would move to accept these names.
Moved by Commissioner DeRosa, supported by Commissioner Haskell. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On to item number 4, our state appropriation for fire training facility, and this deserves some discussion or clarification. So Connie, would you like to address this? Or Ben?
Well, so it's changed since we discussed at Ways and Means, but essentially what happened is there's a fire training committee that was established, and one of the training things is obviously live training, which is important for firefighters, just like it is for police officers. This allows them to do that by purchasing a building and then equipping the building, but it ended up coming to the county, so that means we have oversight over the grant itself. We have a new grant policy that has 15% admin. We thought we were good to go with this last week, Friday, after Ways and Means, and then reviewing contracts that we would give out to the fire training committee. We are unsure if we can just give a contract, give it to them, without going through our entire bid process. So we're not comfortable right now until we talk to somebody from the state of Michigan, Leo, and we do have an email, a contact person. But in reviewing other grant documents that we've had, the oversight that we have to have is too significant for us to ask the board to go ahead and push this through and sign an agreement and then give the money to the committee. So we'll evaluate it, but the one thing that I'd ask right now while we're doing that is that you do have a full board meeting next Friday. We would ask that if we can get this through, that we would add that to the agenda for next Friday. That's really what I can do right now. I just can't look at doing this. There's purchasing policies that need to be followed, and they can pull grant funds. That's a big concern. This is an appropriation, and in reading grant documents, the state could pull the funds for anything. If we end up not handling the contract with them correctly, we would be obligated for those funds. So to protect the county, we'd like to bring it back next Friday if we can get it figured out.
And it boils down to our inability to have enough staffing to be able to manage these, grants and stuff. And
Yeah, the number of hours
yeah,
thus far have been.
I think it was Melissa said there was going to be a 20-year oversight of
Well, it
this.
depends on if we had to take ownership of the building. It just depends on the grant funding and the appropriations and what they require. So what we're seeing with the appropriations is that they're different. So if you read the contract for one, it's one thing. If you read it for another, it's different. And it depends on who it goes through. So we do know that this would go through Leo with the state. So I think it's the same as another contract that we have, but I'm not willing to take a risk and not actually have the document in front of me before we bring it to you.
Okay, so do we need to make a motion on that to move it to next Friday's, or the next meeting?
Yeah, I would like that.
Okay, I'll move that.
Moved by Commissioner Drosha, supported by Commissioner Whitaker. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
All right, that brings us to our budget resolutions, budget amendments, rather. And I would move this resolution.
Moved by Commissioner Drosha, supported by Commissioner Pearl-Wright. Any comments, questions regarding the budget? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And lastly, our claims and purchases, and I would move to pay the bills.
Moved by Commissioner Drosha, supported by Commissioner Mudry. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, and I would only say that item 5, that budget amendment addresses the park grant that we gave to Grand Ledge. The money's in the parks millage, and it was just a matter of some housekeeping to take care of. So, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner. And that brings us to the administrator's report.
I'll just say thank you very much. I'm not going to go on about everything, but again, I think I mentioned what a big deal this contract was with Delta Township, and I had a speech for both, one to cry, and then this one to say thank you to the board, and then also to Delta Township. Biggest thing I want to talk about to the public and to all of you, next Friday is very important. We're going to be coming with a lot of numbers. We're going to ask you to look at things. I know Melissa has received a few calls from commissioners and met with commissioners about the budget to get answers about specific things. I encourage you to go back and look at the meeting that we had on June 27th, where departments spent an awful lot of time, 80 hours plus, working on giving you a presentation and telling you what they do, what their needs are. So I would recommend that everyone look at that if they are unclear as to what a department does, and then just participate. That's probably my biggest wish for everyone. That's it.
All right, next up, we have the elected officials comment section. If any elected officials would like to make a comment.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Doug Lloyd. I am your Eaton County Prosecutor. I just want to follow up. I had the opportunity to speak at Public Safety last week, and there was a question asked regarding the Economic Crime Unit. I didn't realize how lengthy of time I spoke. I was notified that I did spend a few minutes on it, so I won't repeat myself, but I would request that if you did not attend that meeting, if you could go back and watch Public Safety. It's informative. I was with the program pretty much since its inception, so I am a historian on it, and I did take the time. But one of the questions that was posed to me at the end was in regards to how many cases specifically went to the ECU. And I gave a number of about 2,000. And in speaking to Chris Anderson, my chief assistant afterward, he felt that I didn't clarify one thing. And that one thing really is that if the ECU was somehow dismantled, those 2,000 cases are still 2,000 cases of the Eaton County Prosecutor's Office. But instead of actually diverting those individuals and attempting to help make their lives better, we would just be bringing them back into the criminal justice system. So while I divide those cases out just to signify that that 4-person unit handles that amount of cases, understand that if that unit wasn't there, we would still have 7,000 cases that we would be dealing with. And that brings me to another point, since you will be having the budget meeting. Congratulations on successfully getting the Delta Township contract. That is wonderful for that community. It is helpful to the sheriff, and I'm sure y'all are proud. But here's the only thing that I would like you to consider, and I presented this at the public safety meeting as well. In May, my numbers were right around 7,400 open cases. In June, my numbers were almost 7,500 open cases, meaning that I actually had more open cases by the end of June than I had at the end of May. And you have cut from my staff 2 attorneys and 2 legal assistants. And you recently approved us receiving some money from the state, and I have personally probably spent, myself and Mr. Dawson have probably spent 30 hours trying to appease the state Treasury Department on their continuous questions. But one of the most recent questions is why don't my numbers ever change? And I had to ask him if he had ever swam in a pool or a lake or the ocean, and that there came a point where you were tired, and instead of drowning, you just attempted to tread water. And that's what we're doing here. With the staff that I have, no matter how great they are, there is only so many hours in a day and so many cases they can handle. And now, while we all feel great about this Delta Township contract, it now means I have 38 more officers that are going to be working in the most populous section of our county. A populous section that, as Sheriff Reich has already stated, brings out the most cases out of the county already. And so while you cut my staff, you bring on a contract that will bring more cases to my office. And so my question to you as you think about next Friday is, what do you expect me to do? Because without the personnel, my numbers are never going to go down. And so while we can be proud of this contract and proud of the fact that we have all these officers, you must understand that I have 12 agencies in this county, and that every felony case and every misdemeanor case that is not handled by one of your local cities all get funneled to my office, totaling those 7,000 cases a year. And guess what? They don't leave my office until I say that they're prepared to go on to the courts. So Congratulations on the contract, but please, as you think about things next Friday, think about the fact that if you expect public safety to work, you are going to need to fund the prosecutor's office and the courts. Because without that, public safety is going to come to a screeching halt. I'll take any questions, Chairman. Otherwise, thank you for your time.
Commissioner Arndt.
How much money and time does the Economic Crime Unit solve the county prosecutor's office?
Well, I have 4 individuals, as well as interns who volunteer their time. They each work 40 hours a week. My attorney averages 60 hours a week, being paid for 40 hours. So when you have 4 people there times 40 hours, that's 160 hours just for the Economic Crime Unit, along with the interns that average 20 hours a week. Kelly Fletcher manages to bring in interns from MSU, Olivet College, and Lansing Community College, and they each work an average of 10 to 20 hours a week. So there's another 80 hours on top of that. So 240 time that just out of that one particular unit for those 4 people and volunteers.
And how long has it been in existence?
Late 2002. So, and I will say that I apologize, and I think the Economic Crime Unit has forgiven me because they have watched the public safety and heard me actually say something nice, but probably should have had the 20-year anniversary about it in 2022, but it's been a quiet unit, and they just continue to make money, and so far they've returned to the citizens of Eaton County about $10 million.
Any other questions for the prosecutor? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. First of all, I'd like to thank the Controller's Office, Ben, Chairman Mott, for working many hours to get this contract with Delta on the road. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your Commissioners' vote yes on this vote. Means a lot, 38 positions. We've got to look over that 38 positions. We got to look at what they can do for the community in Delta Township, and that is protect the public. And that's what my job is. Unfortunately, the millages didn't pass. Elk County does not have a road patrol. I still have the best sheriff's department in the area, probably in the state. My deputies work hard. Very proud of each and every one of them, and I think you folks should be as proud. But again, I want to thank you for your time in this and voting yes. I appreciate it, and I'm sure the deputies do too. So that's all I have.
Yep, thank you, Sheriff. I spent a lot of hours and working this contract, so hopefully we can build on it. So, any questions for the sheriff? No? All right, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Darius Raynette, Eaton County Treasurer. The Treasurer's Office has a couple of partners with nonprofits to provide foreclosure assistance to the public. 2 of these organizations are Capital Area Community Services and Housing Services of Mid-Michigan. We were informed a few weeks ago that these groups and other organizations will be holding a Community Resources Day on Wednesday, September 10th at the Live Center from 10 to 3. And they've invited us to participate. Our office is going to be sending out letters to those who are in forfeiture, which is in the first year of the 4-year foreclosure process, making them aware of this, and hopefully we will get in contact with these folks and introduce them to the services that they provide, such as help with utility bills, financial counseling, and even financial assistance. And the United Way's VITA program will also be there as well.
So, the event is open to the public, and we'll be putting an announcement on the Treasurer's webpage on the community, or on the county's web service website. So, thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer Raynette. Anyone else?
Diana Bosworth, County Clerk. I just wanted to report that the treasurer and I have successfully finalized our office switch and settled in. And for us, it's working really well. For my two combined offices, we're already cross-training the staff, and it's going to be a huge improvement for us. Thank you, and thank the treasurer.
Good, very good. All right, next up, we have commissioner comments. Any commissioners have anything they want to share? I'm just going to, go ahead, Commissioner Christensen.
I just wanted to throw out a couple things about my district, actually. This Saturday, July 19th, 4 p.m., 240 South Cochrane Street. Our Charlotte Rising is doing a cornhole tournament. And then Thursday, July 31st, from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Eaton Area Senior Center. The Marines will be there along with the people that run the senior center. They're raising money for Helping Hand Food Pantry, and it's not just a food fundraiser, it's also a food drive, so they're gonna try to fill the stage within the senior center with food. It's $10 a person if you can make it. Bring your non-perishables as well. And our next Board of Commissioners meeting is after the event, so I just wanted to remind people about the Recycle Palooza, August 9th. You still do have to register for that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Haskell.
I missed the date on the Helping Hand Food Drive. What date was that? The Helping Hand Food Drive at the Senior Center, what date was that?
It's Thursday, July 31st at the Eaton Area Senior Center in Charlotte, 5:30 to 7:30.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
I will let everyone know that the annual Fireman's Fest is happening the last Saturday of this month, which is, I think, the 26th. And my understanding is that the same company that was going to do the fireworks in Delta will be doing the fireworks in Olivet. So, it's your chance to check them out. Commissioner Art.
You know, I can't remember what I was going to say.
Commissioner Haskell.
Does that mean you get double the fireworks?
Oh, well, hey.
I wish I said that.
That'd be nice. Commissioner Barber.
I just want to ask my fellow commissioners that on the 25th, that we all come and possibly reconsider outside agencies and revisit how much was reduced from their budgets and increase that amount which we reduce. So we can't take our eye off the ball. We have to get this county in the right, and everybody's we got to participate and figure out how to do this, but we can't just take everything from inside.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to pay.
We do have to make some more cuts. So, anybody else? Any other commissioners? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. Do we have any unfinished business?
No, sir.
Old business?
No.
And new business?
No.
That brings us to our last limited public comment. If anyone would like to approach the board, please limit your comments to 3 minutes, please. Seeing none? With that, we are adjourned to July 25th. Special